Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Evacuation Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the March 17th, 2026 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, including the use of AI note-taking apps, please notify the chair. Seeing none, pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First order of business is to establish a quorum. Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Dykens?
Present.
Mr. Metters?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
And the chair is present. We have no minutes this evening. Next item would be public announcements and agenda item requests. Are there any from the board? Any from the public? Don't see any.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you have one.
Yes.
Forgive me.
just a reminder to the public that the second installment of the FY 2026 real estate and personal property taxes will be released next week, the week of March 23rd, and they're due by 4 p.m. on May 1st.
Thank you, Jill. We have no public hearing and no consent agenda. So the next item will be public comments on the business agenda. You can make them now or contemporaneously with each item. I don't see anyone, so we'll proceed. First item is to consider seasonal liquor license renewals, and I will turn to Shauna Neely.
Yes, good evening. Shauna Neely, acting as your licensing agent. It's time again for the seasonal liquor license renewals, and I'm very happy to report for, I think it's the third year in a row, that everyone has put their fees in, put their applications in, everyone's up to date on taxes and utility bills, so there are no conditional approvals required tonight.
Shauna, I had one question on the all alcohol. The last item is the Chatham Cut. Now, they have closed and they're for sale. So what's the status of their all alcohol license?
So as liquor licenses are assets of the business, they have renewed for the coming year. It would be an asset when it is transferred or sold.
Okay, so this would be somewhat similar to what happened on Crowell Road with Branches, where that license was held for a while. We extended it, I think, for a period of
I
time.
believe they will operate if they haven't sold.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any questions, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the renewals of the seasonal liquor license as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. They are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Next, we have a number of 2026 annual town meeting articles for review and to vote and to place and recommend. I'm going to take out of order, with the permission of the planning board folks, two petitions, two citizen petitions submitted by Mr. Seth Taylor at his request. The first is a citizen petition article to reduce the tax deferred interest rate. Seth, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the boards. I'll be quite brief. We had some considerable discussion about what we could be doing to help our more vulnerable taxpayers and residents of the town previously. And I had told you at that time that I would be bringing a couple of more petition items before the town this year. These two articles can really be seen as companion articles. Historically, the trouble that everybody got into was that 16% interest rate that was being charged against tax title accounts. And it is pretty easy to see that if an individual that was short on money got into a bump in the road, I mean, a relatively small bump in the road, and they got behind, with that 16% interest rate, they could never catch up, because all of the money they tried to pay against their taxes went against interest first. Plus, they had the New Year's taxes piling on top of them, and pretty soon it was conceivable for them to easily be staring at a high five-figure demand of back taxes, which is very much a reality, and as you know, that there are examples in current day. What we can never know is how many of our historic families, members of historic families, were chased out of family homes historically because they saw their equity going down the tube and they had no alternative but to sell the property at fire sale prices and move to a trailer in Florida. I know that Corey and certainly Shireen know people, as I do, that has happened to. These two bills, which I call, or articles that I call companion articles, the first one, and I don't know how they are listed in your agenda, is to reduce the tax-deferred lien interest rate. In Chapter 59, low-income senior citizens are allowed to defer any taxes that they can't pay up to half of the value of the property. The article addresses the specific language of a law that allows us at town meeting to reduce that interest to any number. I've chosen to reduce it, or ask the town to reduce it, to 0.5%, 0.5 of 1%, because I just don't see that the town's in the business of, being a credit card company trying to profit from the difficulties that people may have. The companion bill to it, I call it a companion article, is asking voters to approve a request of a special act of the legislature, because that's the only way I see that we can lawfully take these horrendous tax title accounts that still exist today and roll them into a tax-deferred account for eligible low-income seniors. And if we combine that with the reduced rate of interest and the people that are currently under threat of both of these sorts of liens, the tax-deferred lien and the tax title lien, which we have people that are facing both, if we turn it into one, or the legislature allows us to turn it into one, and we treat that under the rules of the tax-deferred status with the reduced 0.5% rate of interest, people that are doing the best they can to get caught up on their taxes are going to have a chance to probably catch up on their taxes. Also, if you think into the future, if we have young people that don't qualify for tax deferral, but they're a family that's working hard and wants to stay in town, and they get behind, and because they're not old enough yet to qualify for the deferred tax benefits of Chapter 59, and they do fall into tax title, when they get to the age where they qualify for deferred tax benefits, I would see us being able to roll that over and again give them a chance to get back on top. What this does, when you take the two together, absolutely, and to a lesser extent individually, they give our low-income individuals who are having a hard time meet their tax rates. We're not making them leave their home because their equity is going down the drain. We're giving them the opportunity to meet a payment plan that interest won't drive them away from. So they would have the choice of, I want to stay in my family home, I want to stay in my ancestral home. I can make an arrangement with a tax collector that I can catch up to, because I'm only paying 0.5%, and that's what I want to do. At the same time, they can still do what they've been forced to do previously, which is to realize they better sell right away because their equity is going out the window. But right now, that's what they have to do, unless they're incredibly stubborn and just aren't going to leave home because it means so much to them. We have a couple of those, as you're well aware. I just don't think we should be chasing people out of town if we don't have to. And I see this as right in line with what we're trying to do with affordable housing, to try to make the town as affordable as we can for people who can't afford to be here. And I'm talking about people that are already here. That's really all I have to say, unless you have some specific questions.
So Seth, let me just ask, on the interest rate, I know you were here before on these, and so the statutory interest rate right now for this is, what, 8%?
8% statutory.
They reduced it from 16 or whatever it was.
Right.
12 or whatever.
Tax title was 16, November 2024, it reduced to 8. But when you've been paying 16% for
Yeah,
15 to 20 years,
yeah.
you have a massive debt.
So-
I would like to believe, Dean, that if we got the special act of the legislature passed, that we would clean up the past injustices with the opportunity, hopefully, that we never had to face that again.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to deal with it in the likelihood that a non-senior citizen got behind on their taxes and they couldn't avail themselves of the tax deferred program, and the tax collector had to put them into tax title, that as soon as they reached the age, they would be able to roll it over and stay in their home if that's what they chose. Or if they chose to take the sell price and move to a trailer in Florida, they could still do that, but they wouldn't be forced to.
So, I mean, historically, the legislature imposed a higher tax rate on these because they didn't want to encourage tax delinquency, obviously. That's the reason they had these high rates. My recollection is that when you first brought this forward, we were looking at what other towns locally may have done, and I thought like one of the Outer Cape towns, maybe more than one, had brought it down to 4%. Is that? Do we have information on what other towns are doing?
I didn't research other towns, Dean, quite honestly. I didn't see us in a position where we had to be making a profit off of these folks, because I think the number of people that are going to qualify is de minimis.
Yeah.
And I just don't see us wanting to add any level of pain onto people that we don't need to. If they chose to stay in their home, and they're paying off as best they can and reducing their tax debt as much as they can, by the time they die and the property has to be dealt with, either because it goes to an heir, the tax debt has to get cleaned up. And we're going to get all of our principal back and 0.5%. We're not losing money. When they're not paying the taxes, it's just a paper loss anyway. It's not any dollars going in or out. So I'm just thinking, let's do what we can to help those few people that this really has an enormous impact on.
In the companion, on the companion petition, is that something that you crafted? Have you seen this anywhere else?
No, I crafted that.
Okay, all right.
I believe, honestly, that this current administration, Governor Healy and the legislature that's currently sitting on Beacon Hill, this is the same legislature that tried to clean up Chapter 60 and brought the interest rate from 16% down to 8%. I think there is a huge appetite on Beacon Hill and at the state level to try to find creative ways to stop hurting the most vulnerable of the people that we have living in the state. And I have to believe that there would be an enormous appetite for a special act, and it might be something that jogs them into taking universal action statewide to create this opportunity, because I just see it as something that can only benefit the most vulnerable people we have on our tax rolls.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Jeff?
Do you want a recommendation on each?
Well, they're going
Two
on, they're on the
petitions.
warrant, there's the petition articles, let's take them separately. Our recommendation is either for or against it, we can't modify it.
Correct.
It could be modified on the floor of town meeting, obviously, but, yeah, go ahead.
So I move to recommend the petition seeking, a reduction to 0.5% of the annual interest rate against outstanding tax-deferred accounts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on it? Stuart?
No real questions. I want to thank you, Seth, for bringing this forward. This is long overdue, and certainly will go towards what we're trying to do, which is help the folks that live here and are trying to stay here. So I'll be in support of this.
Okay,
when we
I
vote.
don't see any public comment on this. So we have a motion that has been seconded to recommend this first item. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, so the next petition article is for the consolidation of the tax title and tax divert accounts,
Yes,
as
Mr.
Mr. Taylor
Chairman, I move to
proposed.
recommend.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Both of
Thank you
them.
very much.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you.
Well done.
Next item, we'll go back to the regular agenda, is the zoning bylaw amendment on accessory dwelling units. And there's a proposed bylaw. This had been referred by us to the planning board for a public hearing. They presented to the Finance Committee today and got a unanimous vote of endorsement. And so we'll welcome Art Spru, the chair of the planning board, and Cindy O'Grady, got it right? Our planning director.
I am Christine O'Grady.
Christine,
And
I
I am here with Art
apologize.
Spru, like we had said. I know that many of you have already seen this presentation, so I know that it hasn't been long since you had seen the presentation. So I am prepared to either present a short and revised version of the presentation to you tonight, or I can present the last few slides, which highlight the changes that the planning board made at the public hearing, and then in answers to some questions that the Finance Committee asked today. So you can tell me how to proceed.
Go ahead.
Okay? We're going to go with the revised version. So I'd like to just start by telling you, basically, ADU, you all know what the ADU is. You know that we've had them here in town since 2019. One of the things I want to point out, we have confirmed that this is a simple majority vote, and the reason for this is because of some housing initiatives that were proposed before at the state level. So now I'm going to just take you to, I'm sorry. Slide number 7. So what I want to go over here is that at the public hearing on March 9th, the planning board made some determinations. And so one of the things was they definitely limited the number of ADUs to one per lot. And these are going to be done by right, which is required. There is no option for a special permit. They did not increase the state mandated 900 square foot maximum limit for the use. So it could either be one half the gross floor area of the primary unit or 900 square feet, whichever is less. So they've kept that in check. The third thing that they did was, under the short-term rentals, this is one of the main concerns of the planning board, they added some language after the end of the short-term rental thing that was in your bylaw before, is in order to address the town's needs for year-round housing, an ADU shall be actively rented and/or leased on a year-round basis until such time as an ADU no longer meets the definition of an accessory dwelling unit as defined in Section 2 of this protective bylaw. A one-year waiver may be granted for ADUs that are unable to be rented due to the need for repairs or unforeseen circumstances. The reason this came about was because members of the community development staff had sat in on a presentation with the Housing and Livable Communities group, and this had come up as an option. This was something that was brought forward in Eastham last year, and it was approved by the Attorney General's office, so we felt this was the best way in order to move forward with helping to control the short-term rentals or from being built from ADUs. The last thing that the planning board made a determination on at the public hearing was that the ZBA will have the discretion to allow dimensional relief for ADUs where appropriate. Differences, I know that people asked about the differences that had occurred between the 2019, the 2022 version, and now. And basically, some of these things are required because of the state, and some of them, again, the guidance that we received. So all ADUs will be allowed by right. That is something that has changed. There is no limit on the number of units that can be built, permitted, constructed, or leased in town. In the past, you had a limit of 10 units. There are no limits on the number of bedrooms or people within the bedrooms. That being said, the building commissioner and Title V things play into that, and that's where those determinations will be made. Another item was that the planning board had always required one additional parking space, and so one of the things that can't happen here is that if they are within a half-mile radius of a transit station, and a transit station is basically any place where you embark on the bus, then they can't require a space at all in those cases. There's no minimum lot size at this point, and these units will not be counted in any density calculations moving forward. Some of the questions that were asked today at the Finance Committee meeting were about the number of units that we have in the town right now. So as of 2019, when you put an ADU bylaw into effect, you had one permitted by a special permit and one by right. Since the regulations took effect in 2025 at the state level, the state regulation, which now supersedes your 2019 bylaw, there have been 3 permitted and 1 has been completed. So 1 has been completed or built. After the planning board proposed this bylaw change, there are 2 currently under negotiation of being permitted at this time. They also asked some questions, just as a side note, about short-term rentals, so we went back through the numbers. There are approximately 1,000 short-term rentals here in town. Again, don't get them confused with ADUs, just keep in mind you have about 1,000, and they are tracked or permitted at the local level and again at the state level. Any enforcement with regard to those, again, is done through the building department and the Board of Health. And then the new online permitting system that we are starting to implement in town. Right now it is with the building department. We do flag any permitted ADUs that come about, so we do have notification of that within the system. It's internal, so staff does see those and kind of keep an eye on some of those other things. Again, I would just point out to you that the recommendation or the report that you received today in your packets and the article bylaw presented before you do take into account these items that I have addressed tonight. So you have all of this material as part of your package. And I would say the only thing now is that we're requesting that you recommend this bylaw at town meeting. I don't know if you have any questions for Art or myself, but.
Art, thank you, Christine. Art, did you have anything you'd like to say?
Just some simple, and it's a clarification. This is separate from the seasonal community piece. It applies to the ADU law that was passed by the legislature applies to all 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. So nobody's exempt from that. What we're recommending here is some slight modifications that are more appropriate, or what we feel is what our community would like to adopt. I think the one provision that we put in there after the short-term rental is reason enough just alone to vote in support of the bylaw.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Jeff?
I move to support. I move to recommend, I move to place.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, before you do that, I just wanted to point out, I think it's a typo under the use schedule in the packet, paragraph number 4, the third line, satisfactory, I think should read satisfactorily, should be the adverb. Do you see that?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
It's in the actual bylaw amendment under paragraph C, the use schedule.
Yeah,
Paragraph number 4, the first word satisfactory
oh, okay,
should be satisfactorily,
okay.
okay? So we have a motion that's been seconded. Any just debate? Stuart?
I just, more of a question, I guess. I generally support the ADU concept, but your addition, your addition that we were supplied with requires the ADU to be rented to and leased on a year-round basis, such time the ADU no longer meets the definition of. A one-year waiver may be granted for ADUs that are unable to be rented due to the need for repairs or unforeseen circumstances. Is there an example of an unforeseen circumstance?
So this language, again, we took it from the Eastham bylaw because we knew that it had been approved by the Attorney General's office. Unforeseen circumstances,
It
you know,
could
a
be
storm, it could be,
A fire, it could be a failed septic system, it could be several different items they're unforeseen, they happen. It would prevent you from actually continuing to operate.
but it might not be a repair or require a
Right,
repair.
yeah.
Yeah. So would the owner's inability to rent the ADU to a year-round folks, would that be an unforeseen? I mean, what if they're unable to rent these? I mean, we're requiring them to be rented to year-round folks. I get that, okay? But what if they can't?
Katie?
I would imagine that it'd just be like any other rental, they're unoccupied then.
No,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, Katie Donovan, Director of Community Development and Assistant Town Manager. I wanted to mention that the existing 2019 bylaw also had a provision similar to this. We did take that into account, understanding that they may not be able to be rented. And because of that, there was, we had noted that it would be worked through with the building commissioner. Somebody could call the building commissioner, tell them that they're not able to rent. And at a point in time, we would just ask them for verification of that process. So that was how we dealt with it in the 2019 bylaw. So this is very similar language or a similar requirement to what we had back then.
Yeah, I mean, in the first sentence, it says, an ADU shall be actively rented and/or leased on a year, shall be actively. And you're saying that if they're not able to rent it, they're able to get some sort of a waiver from the building commissioner?
And yes, that's how, again, how we dealt with it previously.
is that-
We haven't had that happen at this point in time.
Well, we don't have many,
don't have that many.
many
So,
ADUs, but,
So I can't say, but we did understand that there may be issues where somebody can't, they may go 3 or 4 months without finding somebody to be able to rent, and that we shouldn't be penalizing people for that.
and because that's not included here, that provision, that relief valve is allowed for, unless it's somewhere else in the bylaw that I'm not familiar with. And, should it also include a sentence to say, if you're unable to rent it, then the building commissioner will make a determination as to whether you gave it?
Part of the relief that is set up previously, if you didn't have it rented after a period of time, then you had to remove it. There's no requirement that it has to be removed underneath the
Okay.
current law.
That's somewhat draconian to remove an ADU if you don't use it, so that's probably not a,
That's the way the previous bylaw was written.
yeah, that's like our, yeah, okay, that's like the animal control bylaw last week. So, I mean, you know, I like the intent of this, but I also would like to give some assurance to the people who are going to invest in this. Hey, if you can't rent it and you do your due diligence in trying to do so, then you'll have some sort of a relief or waiver for some period of time from the building commissioner, because this is somewhat, says you have to do it, period.
Is it the building commissioner that grants the waiver, or is it the zoning board?
It had been under the previous bylaw, so I would assume that that's the way we would go.
Right. The ZBA is dimensional requirements, and that's the only provision that they have in,
Right.
because everything else is by right.
Stuart had a question pending. I mean, I interrupted, but I had a follow-up. But
Well, that was my, you know, I know it's kind of on the spot, but is there is there an appetite for that? Is there seems to me, because it's so specific that you have to do this, but we're also verbally saying, however, if something happens, you know, you can get a waiver from the building commissioner for some, you know, I'd certainly feel a lot more comfortable with, and people probably on town meeting floor would feel a lot more comfortable with that provision.
So that's what I was going to say to you. We could potentially put something together and then bring it at town meeting floor. But there's nothing we can do right now, since the planning board has held their public hearing. But we can put some language together and then propose it at that point.
Is that something you'd be interested in?
I would be open to that, sure. And
Okay.
I think our board members would be also.
Okay, great.
what can you do in the instance where they can't rent it year-round, but they're surreptitiously having a short-term rental? Is there someone that's going to check that? I know our short-term rentals are registered. Is there sort of some cross-checking between departments? I mean, I'm not saying change your bylaw here, I just,
So currently, the building commissioner works very closely with our short-term rental inspector, and I do think that if we were made aware that it was being rented on a short-term basis, then we would take any other enforcement similar to any other zoning action.
okay.
And there's enough enforcement mechanisms elsewhere in zoning to make that happen, because enforcement always is
Yes, there's actually a section in our zoning bylaw related to enforcement, so I think that would be.
that is strict enough that people would be deterred from doing that sort of thing.
Whether or not.
Not a $100 fine, is it, I hope?
We would have, well, up to, in the bylaw, we're allowed to fine up to $300 a day. So, you know, certainly there is teeth in the enforcement section of the bylaw.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll call the roll on the motion to place. Okay, Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Is there a motion to recommend?
Move to recommend, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded to recommend. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is placed and recommended. Thank you very much for the concise
Thank you,
presentation.
and I will take this to our board to discuss and see what we can offer at town.
We appreciate the great work of
Any
the,
comments?
great work of the planning department and the board. Next, we have some budget transfers for storm-related expenses, and our finance director, Carrie Mazzarella, will present this.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a presentation. But as you guys are all aware, we had quite a few storms this year. And snow and ice related issues. This is a budget transfer for the annual town meeting to cover our snow and ice deficit. It's currently in the $208,000 in the deficit. We appropriated $95,000 for FY '26. And then also, we had the blizzard in February. which there was estimated costs of around $300,000 for that. So this would come from $100,000 to cover the snow and ice from the insurance budget, and then $110,000 from the debt service, and $300,000 from debt service to cover the blizzard expenses. Let's see. As you guys are all aware, I'm sure that you know that when we submit to FEMA, we submit in increments, and so we submitted our IDA, which was for $300,000 to them, which is the initial damage assessment. And then you have to meet a threshold for the county. The county threshold is like 1.1 million that you have to make and meet. And then you have to also meet a threshold for the whole state, which is around $13 million. We won't know if we'll get the FEMA reimbursements. It could be a while before we get them. And because we have the funds available now in our budget, instead of raising and appropriating our, the costs for snow and ice, it would be prudent that we cover the costs with the money, the funds that we have available.
Thank you, Carrie. I notice in the motion on the article, I think there's a line missing, second line. The first line ends abruptly. It says available funds for the, and then the next line begins to meet.
Oh, okay.
Something missing.
Correct that.
I want to take care of that before
Yep.
it's put in the warrant.
Absolutely.
Any questions to Carrie? Or comments, Stuart?
I had a couple, and I had actually called Carrie earlier, but it might be helpful for the public, I think, to digest this. The 75%, Carrie, if we get reimbursed, that, let's say when we get reimbursed, either a portion thereof or all of it, what happens to that money?
So it will get deposited to the general fund.
The general fund, which is separate from free cash.
Correct. Well, it would just go into our revenues
Yeah.
that year, if we do receive our 75%, they go through a whole process to see what's eligible and what's not eligible, and whatever we receive will go into the general fund revenue line. And anything above what we anticipate for our revenues for that year will get close to free cash, and that's how that would kind of work.
I'm sorry, anything,
Anything above what we've estimated for our revenues that we're going to take in for our budget usually gets closed out to our undesignated fund balance.
which is the free cash? Okay. Okay, well, discussion for another day, I guess. And the 25% the town is responsible for.
Correct.
The state doesn't share that.
No.
Shocker. And could you just help me with maybe some of the details that are in the first page of the memo, the 300,000, these costs included extended snow and ice operations, well, that's certainly understandable. Equipment usage, I'm not sure what that is, but in any event, materials, overtime, well, the overtime I get. Do you have any other details that might be?
So, yeah. So we have, when we track for our FEMA expenses, we have a spreadsheet that everybody was using. So it's a combined effort with DPW, fire, police, natural resources, and everybody kind of used the spreadsheet, and we all entered the expenses that they incurred. So fire was tracking their overtime. So their overtime costs estimated was $29,826. Police overtime was $1,989,000. The DPW cost for snow removal costs was almost $72,000. And then we had debris removal of $160,000. And then there were some other costs for damages to a generator that incurred. the warming center costs. Then there was also costs to refuel the generators while we were up and running on generator. And then also there was some vehicle damage to vehicles during the storm. And there was also nav aids that got lost, I guess, during the storm. Those are the ones that they purchase every year for the $20,000.
Okay, well, thank you. Certainly glad we're adding to our snow and ice next year.
Yeah, yes.
Hopefully, we won't have another year like this, but, I mean, it's an expensive endeavor, so it's over $500,000.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, or is there a motion to place?
Motion to place.
In a second.
Moved and seconded to place. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dyken?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Is there a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend.
In a second.
And moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dyken?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you very much.
The next item is acceptance of the bequest from the estate of Priscilla Ford for the property at 63 George Ryder Road. This is continued from March 10th, 2026. When we left it last time, Town Council was to revise the language somewhat in the article, which he has done. And I'll turn to Gloria McPherson to present this. Gloria, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Town council edited the language. The request was made by the select to ensure that the language was broad enough that it would accomplish any of the three options that were listed in the warrant article in the staff report. There was option A, B, and C. A, to retain the property. B, to sell the property with a deed restriction for affordability. And option C was to sell the property without a restriction, but use the proceeds from that sale for affordable housing purposes. And originally, that was the option that wasn't quite reflected in the original language. And so town council has updated the language. I'm sure you have it in front of you. If you'd like, I can share my screen too, or if you have any questions.
Would you please put it up on the screen? Because I had a question about a deletion that town council made. Okay.
Can you see that, Ellie?
Yeah, I can. Before I go to that, on the fiscal impact, you referenced the tax owed to the town in the amount of about $10,000, but it's also referred to as a tax and utility debt. Do you know what we mean by utility debt?
So I added that in because when I received the breakdown, it actually showed current taxes, the back taxes that are in tax title, and also some utility fees, which I'm assuming are sewer, maybe not sewer, but water charges.
Water charges.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking at the screen, town council struck the sentence, which is right in the middle after his new language. Said bequest to be accepted with the provision that the property be held and dedicated to use by the town for such affordable housing purposes as the select board shall deem to be in the town's interest. Now, he struck that. I'm just trying to avoid ambiguity in the future, so we don't have a repeat of 127 Old Harbor Road. I suspect he's looking at town council was looking at the motion which says, I move that the town vote to accept the bequest and instruct the select board to carry out its provisions as described in the article. And the article does above, in the underlined language, talk about the alternatives, but I wonder if there is any sentiment to reinserting that sentence. I don't think it interferes with the intent of town council's changes, but I defer to the rest of the board for comment on this. I have not run this by town council, and if town manager has any comment on it, or assistant town manager, or Gloria. Stuart, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, I'd be more comfortable with that sentence staying and you know, we asked for this addition, but I don't remember asking to delete anything. But I'd just be more comfortable with it back in.
As would I.
It can always be stricken at town meeting on the floor if town council thinks it doesn't belong in there. Gloria, do you have any comment on this?
I mean, in my opinion, I would like to see it there because it specifically references what the will says, which is that the select board gets to deem what's appropriate for affordable housing purposes for the site. That said, I think that it was probably stricken because it may be a little bit repetitive,
Yeah, I think
but
that's,
I don't see a problem with leaving it in.
yeah, I think that's what he probably had in mind. All right, I would propose we keep it in. Is there a motion to place this article?
I'll make a motion to place.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Corey?
Yeah, we'd have a little bit of discussion if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Just, this is kind of the chance to put on things on the record. First of all, I think Pat Ford putting this forward, I thank her very much for being, when, she approached the town years back with this idea. And I very much appreciate her, giving us this opportunity to accept the gift. I really hope the town acts favorably at town meeting, because I think it's, even with the small, encumbrances of fees, is well worth accepting this. Just want to put it on the record, my philosophical and my interpretation of the gift does not include what we refer to as option C. I don't think the selling of the property was the intent, but I also admit that the language in the will isn't crystal clear. That could, sway that one way or another. That's just my own personal position on that. Some people share it, some people don't share it. It was just fine. I understand the majority of the board is looking for options. I can respect that. I guess my question becomes, town meeting hopefully is favorable upon this. What happens to that property falls under whose jurisdiction? Because and I mentioned this previous, once we become the owners of that property, I would assume one of the first things we're going to have to address is the letter of interest that has been presented on this property, whether we want to accept it or not, or further, whatever. Whose jurisdiction is that going to fall under? What is the process? Because if we do accept it and we decide to entertain the sale of it, then what is the process from there? I would assume it's not one of those things where we're going to have to declare surplus inventory. I'm assuming it's going to have another mechanism or another process path. So I'm just looking for some clarification. I fully support this action. I just want to understand what the next steps will likely be, so we don't go back and say, well, that wasn't what our intent was. I just want to be clear from the ground where we're heading with this.
Yeah, my response is that I think it would fall under the jurisdiction of the select board. And I think if the select board then wants to turn it over to turn over control to the Affordable Housing Trust, it would require a vote from us. But, I don't speak as town council, but that's my impression. Shireen, you were first, and then.
Yeah, I just want to make sure in the process that we don't lose sight that this is a property that's going to need some care to it, to shore it up and to close it up and to keep an eye on it. And that when in the past, when the Affordable Housing Trust had purchased property over in Kroll Road, it was implied that the town would have, would be looking after it, or facilities would be looking after it. But I'm almost thinking that there needs to be some sort of dedication of like intent. And I talked to Jill when it came down to the property on Kroll Road or anything that the Affordable Housing Trust might go forward with, that we would take it out of pocket to have somebody be like the maintenance person or somebody who's going to oversee the property when it was closed. We don't want to see what's happened to 127 happen here. As we get sort of bogged down in possible, deliberation on what is the best use for this. But I just want to make sure that it's an older home and that it does, that the pipes don't burst or something doesn't happen.
I think any property that is not specifically assigned to another department falls under the jurisdiction of the select board.
Okay.
Whether we would have to take those votes that you talked about, Corey, I don't know the answer to that question. But if it falls into, if town meeting accepts this, falls into our jurisdiction, then I think after the annual town meeting, the select board, working with the town manager, could address your question and concern, Shereen, but Jill wanted to say something.
Yes, I agree. And then if it is ultimately transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust, because just recall, there's no funding appropriated with this article. It's just the acceptance, but it could be transferred, the interest, and the Affordable Housing Trust would have the means to fund it. But yes, it would fall under, under the select board until you decide what you want to do with
So
it.
we might want to immediately transfer to the Affordable Housing Trust because they have the money
Yep.
to maintain it.
That's
Gloria, any comments before we, do we have a motion? Yeah, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I agree. I agree that it should be under the purview of the select board, especially if we're going to abide by the language that's in the will, which has been stricken, which I think we ought to reinsert. And I think lessons are learned from 127 in that we deal with the property. Should town meeting approve to accept the gift, I think we deal with it straightforward and get on it right away. Thank you.
I can't remember whether we had a motion. Motion accepted, okay. So, all right, this is the motion to place this article. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Is there a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend.
Second?
Moved and seconded to recommend. No discussion. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can grab my mic. So with the presumption that the language that was stricken
Yes,
is placed back.
We voted in to keep the stricken language.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a citizen petition article submitted by Christopher Ray, calling for a new bylaw, regulatory analysis. Mr. Ray, this was presented at the Finance Committee today. They conditionally, no, this wasn't conditionally. They approved it 7-2. Welcome.
Cool. So I just wanted to thank Stuart for the Comedy Gold earlier, which is what are the unforeseen circumstances. That was pretty good. I like that. So the article is in your hands, and the idea is to present, in situations where things don't have to go through the town meeting, just some understanding of where things are coming from. The inspiration for it was the Office for the Management of the Budget, the federal group. Theirs is kind of, as you would imagine, quite heavy because they deal with major agencies. But the idea is that you should just, well, there are three basic elements to any kind of regulatory analysis. What's the need? What are the options? And how do the options weigh up against the conclusions? So I think it's a good thing. I think it's just practical. And actually, I've got Dean to thank for this earlier on because he came on to the Finance Committee and he made some issues about this is our right to make this choice. We don't have to explain ourselves. And I thought about that, and I was kind of going, well, there's two phases to everything. One is making up your own mind why you want to do something. And then there's the second thing, which is, do I have the power to do it? And I don't dispute for a moment that you guys have the power to do certain things. But I do think it's just a courtesy to anyone who's listening to explain why you think that's a good idea. And this is an open town with open town meeting. And I just think it's a fair and a reasonable thing to ask that that's explained. And in slightly more detail than supporting struggling residents. So that's the purpose of the article, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of repeat what I said today at the Finance Committee, and and I say it respectfully. I understand the intent of your article, and I certainly would hope that this body and anybody that has the right to do something and is elected to make those decisions would explain why they're doing it to those that elect them. But I do have a problem with this, and I'm going to read in a moment from something town council sent. You're asking for the article asks for a bylaw that basically directs the select board on how, in my opinion, it deliberates, it's supposed to deliberate on an item that has, on a matter that has been entrusted to the select board exclusively by the state legislature. And the underlying issue, the underlying subject is the residential tax exemption. I can't think of another example. Someone asked me today, and I don't know of another one. But we have a state law that says to the select board, you have the right to create this tax exemption. There's no qualification or condition expressed in it. Under the town charter and under provisions of state law, historically, the select board is the executive authority of the town. The town meeting is a coordinate branch of town government. They're not the bosses of the select board. They can make bylaws, but the bylaws have to be consistent with the charter and with state law. So I really think there's a legitimate question as to whether this bylaw isn't an encroachment on the authority of the select board. And all the time I've been on the board, I've been very jealous of that authority. And I'm looking ahead to future select boards. It's probably never going to affect me and probably no one else on this board in years to come. So the article before you got your signatures was submitted to town council, and he says this, and you've seen this because it was addressed to you. He says, in furtherance of, well, it was addressed to Kathy, and she forwarded it to you. In furtherance of the below dialogue, I am following up with respect to the most recent draft bylaw. In my opinion, it is problematic for three main reasons. The first is that its implementation of a three-part process every time the Select Board considers implementation of a statute is simply unworkable. The Select Board consider implementation of hundreds of statutes per year, and requiring such a process in every instance would be a significant obstacle to the function of municipal governance. Second, because each statute has to be reviewed in accordance with its own language governing implementation, it is conceivable that the three-part process would be inconsistent with, delay, or frustrate implementation, or otherwise infringe on the authority of the Select Board. Third, relatedly, statutes that require Select Board acceptance provide independent discretion to the Select Board, and I am concerned that the proposed bylaw frustrates and infringes upon that independence. That's kind of the point I was trying to make. The town manager referred this yesterday to town council because this was submitted to you before you got your signatures, and she asked whether the opinion still stands, and he wrote, we just saw this, I saw this after the Finance Committee meeting. He responded and said, yes, I adhere to that opinion, and as I have also mentioned, the use of the term local option is not defined and excessively broad. I am very wary about having to implement this cumbersome process every time the Select Board considers whether to implement a statute. I wanted to get that out on the record. You had not seen that paragraph. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I indicated I was not going to vote to recommend it, but it'll be up to town meeting. If it's passed, it goes to the Attorney General for approval, and I think that helped sway some of the votes on the Finance Committee, if I read them correctly. But anyway, I'll open it to conversation at the board. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Ray. Nice to see you again. I'm going to read a little statement that I've written, kind of summarizing my thoughts. I find this petition in and of itself to be nettlesome and bothersome. I believe your petition stems from your dissatisfaction with the residential tax exemption position currently supported by the Select Board 3-2 in favor. Underlying its genesis is a thinly veiled assumption that the Select Board has not considered, and you use the words qualitative or quantitative data, or in so many words, has not performed its due diligence in some measure in taking its position on the residential tax exemption, and therefore needs a formal bylaw to so accomplish. Every year, when we set the tax rate at the tax classification hearing, typically held in September, the Chatham Select Board considers the impact of a bifurcated tax rate. I've done so for 12 years. I've been on the board for 13 years, and I've voted for a non-differentiated tax rate for 12 of those years. I thought that doing otherwise would cause a drive divisiveness in the community. But this year, I've indicated that I'm going to change my vote. And I want you to hear why, and I want other folks to hear why. Our year-round residents are increasingly challenged and incredibly challenged to maintain their households in what has become one of the wealthiest communities on the Cape. These residents have small businesses, blue-collar workers, service workers, fishermen, fisherwomen, and professionals. They send their children to our local schools. With overwhelming seasonal market forces driving up the cost of land and buildings, coupled with the attractiveness of short-term rentals and the plethora of short-term rentals, 1,000 of which, the prospects of gaining a year-round foothold in our town by our young people have either entirely vanished or diminished markedly. COVID-19, in fact, only served to exacerbate these macro trends. So, for those residents who have managed to gain a foothold here in our own home and own a home in our beautiful town, I'm willing to do my part to make it just a bit more affordable and attractive for them to perhaps stay here and raise their families, to attempt to level the playing field in just a little bit. The residential tax exemption is just one mechanism granted to a select board to accomplish just that. It is meant to reduce property taxes for full-time year-round residents whose home is in Chatham, and it is their legal domicile. Our finance and assessing staff have performed extensive analyses of the impact of the adoption of the residential tax exemption. This was not done without due diligence and a basis for an understanding. And indeed, the Select Board has moved to modify their position because of their excellent input. As an example, for folks listening, a year-round homeowner, assuming the 20% exemption currently being proposed and a home assessed at $900,000, would save approximately $1,000 on their property taxes. For many, that represents a welcome and a material savings. For many, that is a welcome and material savings, $1,000. Our overall tax rate, by the way, will still remain one of the lowest on the Cape, even with the adoption of our residential tax exemption. I also question the legality of your petition that proposes to amend our bylaws. Not only has the Massachusetts General Court given authority to the Select Board via Mass General Law, but it has also recently reaffirmed that authority and increased the percentage available to the Select Board in its consideration of the residential tax exemption via its passage of the Seasonal Communities Act. Should this petition be passed by town meeting, and I hope that it is not, it will need to receive approval by the Massachusetts Attorney General. In my opinion, your petition overreaches when you include a right of review and a mandate for Finance Committee review by a town meeting bylaw being inserted into a process that the Select Board has by right via state statute 2 times over, has the right. In conclusion, I do not support your petition, and I take issue with your inference that such a bylaw is even needed because of your perception of a lack of due diligence on the part of this Select Board. Thank you very much.
I've allowed you, Jeff, to expand beyond the subject of the petition to go into that because on the agenda tonight is Mr. Bray's agenda item request, it's paragraph D. I was going to ask if we wanted to take that up while you were still here, but we might as well get into that. But this is a review and analysis. Can I just read what it is?
I can break in here. That was never intended to be on the agenda for tonight.
Oh, well, it was on the list of items.
I saw that,
so I put
and I
that
don't know
on
why
there.
it got there. That was something I submitted in October.
Are you withdrawing that for?
Well,
or do you want to respond?
I think
I put it on, can I explain? I put it on the
Yeah, go-
agenda
go.
because it was on the list, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to honor your request. That's, I'll just read what it is, so for the public, it's been a review and analysis of factors causing the implementation of a residential tax exemption citizen agenda request by Christopher Ray, October 14th. But go ahead.
So the purpose of that was what it was at the time. I suggest that probably the right time to do that now is after the Finance Committee have produced their report and presented their analysis. But there's no new information that would require that to be an agenda item right now. But I think it's still absolutely valid. And I hope that when the Finance Committee present their stuff, that you will be moved by it.
Well, they're doing they've created a subcommittee. Is that the report you're talking
Yeah,
about?
no, exactly
Okay.
right.
They're looking, they've got their own article, which we placed last
Yeah,
week
no, that's right.
for a year's delay. Shireen?
Yeah, I just want to weigh in just a little bit on this, Mr. A, and only because, we're the Board of Selectmen, and we're elected by the townspeople. We're the ones that have to put ourselves out there and make hard decisions for the community and face the consequences of our actions. Either people can vote us off, people can vote other people in. That's what happens. The Finance Committee's sole role is to approve a budget. And there's been a lot of work that the Finance Committee has done outside of that purview in working groups and whatnot. But we're the policymakers, and they approve the budget. Or they approve the budget that we present to them, actually. Is that how that works? So I think this is overreaching, and it's unnecessary. And I agree with Jeff in his analysis of why we've done this. I think I've spent my career as a select board member thinking in terms of what actions, what policies are we making in this town that affect the year-round residents on a daily basis. That's where my thoughts, that's where my work has been, and I've thankfully have a board that has listened to a lot of the ideas that have come forth from the community. And so I'm not going to support this as a recommendation at all, and you probably knew that already. But I just wanted to make that clear.
Sure.
That's my thoughts are. Thank you.
Board members.
No, I'm going to make my comments very simple. I mean, I've been on the board since 2015. This board works very diligently. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree, but I'm very comfortable with the process that we've put in place, the reviews we take, the analysis. I understand your sentiment, and I can respect you bringing this forward, but it's not something that I can support. I really hope town meeting doesn't support it, because I do think what we have in place right now and have had place since 2015, since I've been on the board, is inappropriate. And we have produced, I think, solid representation for the community. And, again, we don't always agree on things, but I think we do a very good job collectively representing the various interests of the town to the best of our ability. So,
Stuart?
Question and then a comment. Did the Finance Committee have the legal opinion prior to making their vote?
No, they asked whether there was a legal opinion. At that point, I was aware of the longer version that I read a moment ago, and I told them there had been an opinion, a review done by legal counsel, or Carrie related that to them. I spoke with Carrie when they asked the question. Said that there had been a legal review done by counsel on the draft article before the signatures were obtained, but the content of that opinion was not disclosed. I was asked if I had any comment. I was present. I'm the liaison to the Finance Committee. And I did get up and made the same points that I made. I did not reference a legal opinion by anybody. So they didn't have it. Frankly, I don't think it would have mattered to them. Let me say something, if I might.
Sure.
It's not directed at you, but I want to follow up on something Shireen said, and it's going to make some people on the Finance Committee unhappy, but the Finance Committee has the responsibility to weigh in on articles that go to town meeting And our Finance Committee is not limited to financial articles. They can talk about any articles, including petition articles. And there's a fine line between doing that and becoming a shadow Board of Selectmen. And they shouldn't be doing the latter. I'll just leave that. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Those of us who remember pre-charter, they were the shadow Board of Selectmen.
Well, they
And we select board, and we changed that in 1990, whatever, 5. So I share your thoughts on that. And, you know, I ran on a bunch of issues. This is one of them, that this is not a charity statute. This is a equity. This is trying to level the playing field and enable the people that are being forced out of this community to stay here. And if there's another statute that does it, and it's a reasonable one, I'll support that one too. You know, I've been on and on about this in the past. I've supported it before I was on this board, so I won't support this petition.
I'm just going to add that as a member of this board who has never supported the residential tax exemption, I want to say that you cannot, that no one, I'm not saying you, Christopher, but no one can make a reasonable inference that this board did not do an analysis. It may not be the type of analysis that's called for in this article. It may not have included everything. And we saw recently that there was a gap on the issue of trusts. Right. Unfortunately, there's some new guidance from the Revenue Division, the Revenue Department on that. But I say that in defense of the Select Board and its deliberations on this. But I just really wanted to get that out. So anyway, did you have anything more you wanted to say? You're probably not surprised at anything.
I'm not, but, you know, I do think you need to look at the renting situation. So the people who are really struggling in this town are likely to be renters. They've tried to come here. They're trying to get a job here. They're the struggling ones. And there is legislation out there that will support them. Or actually, it will support their landlords in a way that don't encourage them to beef up the rents to cover this extra property tax. And yeah, I've just literally got through from our Senator Sear. And you have just walked past this. You've walked past every bit of legislation that has means testing or all the things that are associated with giving support to the people that need it. And you know, to be brutally honest, I think you think the Select Board have done a good job. I think the fact that we've already had the trust issue, the overlay issue, tells me that the Select Board have done a pretty appalling job.
I brought up the overlay issue when this was discussed, I think at the second meeting in September or October. I brought it up.
So why did you get into that situation? Why did you walk into that situation? You had the whole year.
I voted against it, Chris. I
know, I completely understand, and I support you, and I certainly support Corey. But, you know, to pretend that this has been a kind of perfect process.
Here's the thing. I don't report to town meeting. I don't answer to town meeting. I don't report to the Finance Committee. I report to the people who voted me in. They can vote me out. They can recall me. This is the point Shireen was making earlier. So I'm up here and I make the best decisions I can. And some people like what I decide on, some people don't. I didn't agree with the majority of the board when they voted the RTE, but I don't think it's fair. And I heard comment at the Finance Committee today essentially trashing the Select Board for not doing due diligence. And I think it was unfair.
But you didn't.
Well, it may not have been as complete or as detailed as you're calling for.
It didn't. It ignored the trust issue. How could you do that?
Well, the trust issue has been discussed in previous years. I brought it up in the past, too. So
I mean, seriously, you cannot pretend that this has been a smooth and carefully considered process. And Jeffrey, I completely support the idea of supporting everyone in the town that needs support. But I'm pretty sure that no one on this board needs support. But they're all going to be getting it.
Well, the solution is not to mandate this type of analysis. The town meeting could adopt a resolution requesting, but it wouldn't be binding on the select board, that this type of analysis be done. I don't want town meeting, and I don't think town meeting has the right to tell me how I should deliberate on this board. That's all. That's
No, I completely get that. I don't want town meeting to opine on whether you should mandate stuff in this. I just think that normal people who walk the street would feel obliged to explain themselves when they do something that affects a lot of people, especially when it affects money.
Well, I'll let others speak for themselves. I think people have explained themselves.
I believe I've explained myself on and on and on and on, why I make the decisions I make on this board. And it is for a lot of reasons about local people and how they stay here. And so for somebody to say I'm not doing my due diligence, it's just not right.
So what would you say to the renter? What would you say to the renter in Chatham? Whose
Mr.
landlord
Ray.
is going to push up that? I don't want, I've been almost chucked out before.
You know what,
so.
I think we're getting off topic, but I will say, when we considered this, one of the things that I brought forward was a lease to local program. And we are creating specific things and specific tools to address a lot of concerns. We're not going to be perfect with everything. That's not possible. When you're taking care of a town with 6,000 people in it, it's just not possible. But
Senator Sear has just written to me telling me about a process by which landlords can be exempted from property tax as a result of renting to local people, to people. So you cannot tell me that you have exercised due diligence, because it's nonsense.
Well, we actually have an article that Shireen proposed that's going on the warrant. And there are other ways of dealing with this problem. I mentioned a couple of them up here. I think the tax committee purview should be extended to include need-based support, not just in cases of disability or elderly situations, which is what's called for now. That would require a home rule petition. I would think that was, and I've suggested that the Finance Committee, a subgroup, consider that. I've spoken with Chair Daniels about that. But anyway, did you want to speak, Brian? You had your hand up. You don't have to.
Do you want me to do?
Whatever.
Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. I did hear the Finance Committee's, opinions about renters loud and clear, and I'm putting forward a home rule petition to give tax breaks to people that rent to year-round. I think it's going to go great hand-in-hand with lease to locals, and I just copied it from Orleans. It's not like I thought of this or anything. And Mr. Dykens signed it. Thanks.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
It's in MGL right now. You can adopt it.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the petition.
Okay. I think unless you have-
Recommend the petition.
Okay.
I recommend.
It's on the article.
I know it is.
Is
I
there
recommend.
a second to the motion to recommend?
Well, you should
Well, we
say-
have to take a
You have
vote.
to make,
have to
you always make it in the affirmative, the motion.
Motion's in the affirmative to recommend.
Right, that's the way you're supposed to, I'll second for the process.
There you go.
I'm going to add, you have one last comment, Mr. Ray?
No.
Okay,
I've said my bit.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
no.
Mr. Dykens?
No.
Mr. Metters?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No.
And the chair votes no. So it's 0-5. That'll be our recommendation. Thank you. And we will excise from the list your original request, Mr. Ray. Next, we have a discussion of the preliminary order of articles and the Select Board speaker assignments. So Jill, turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we had discussed, we plan to ask the Select Board to close the warrant next week. That's on March 24th. So I don't really see any new articles coming that are sponsored by staff, other than if there's another petition article or two that comes in. And so I wanted the board to start to think about the ordering of the warrant so we can get started with that. And if you're comfortable after that, if we could start to think about assigning motion by, so not the speakers of by the Select Board, but who would offer the motion. So we have it pretty much set up. As you will see, the first 20 or so articles are all financial. You'll see that the regular ones, including the fixed salary for elected officials, consolidated revolving funds, are also included within that first 20. And if you look on the second page too, a couple of more capital articles, an article for dredging, child care voucher program, and then our other post-employment transfer from free cash. So those are all financial articles. Then after Article 32, we get into some of the acceptance, home rule petitions, lease to locals, and then the block of community preservation projects and administrative budget appropriations. After that, we have the zoning bylaw amendment, an easement for Boston Gas Company, our local options, and including the implementation of a residential exemption delay that's sponsored by the Finance Committee. And then the last block of articles that we have here are the citizen petition articles. So if you have any thoughts, we're happy to accept.
And we got an additional citizen petition article today on water conservation and wells.
Yes, and so that will be scheduled for your Select Board meeting next week, including
Sounds like
if
we're
we get
getting
another one in before, that will be.
Okay.
And if not, if we don't receive it in time, it will go on the warrant, and then you can vote a recommendation at town meeting or sometime before that.
So I would just say, and I think we've discussed this in the past, we can spend all the time we want ordering these things, but we have found in the past when we get to town meeting, inevitably somebody goes up to the moderator and says, we would like to take this out of order and move this up, and it doesn't take much to effectuate that. But we should submit it in whatever order we wanted. I took a look at the list, and I wanted to suggest, because we're looking to see who is going to present on these, and one in particular jumps out at me, and that's the Center for Active Living. Ordinarily, since I've been the liaison to the Council on Aging, I would think of myself as doing that, but Stuart, you were on the working group that came forward with this, and I would suggest that you might want to be the one to
Great, I'd be happy to.
speak to that. I'd like to, I think I should probably speak on the fixing the salaries, as I may have a few things to say about that, and since I presented that. I just leave it open now for discussion about how you might want to handle this. Anybody want to step forward? Jeff?
Well, the chair usually does the operating budget.
Yeah.
You're not. So I think, Dean, you do that one. And I love doing the Monomoy ones. The monitoring operating budget. And
I don't mind doing the water. We can just sort of
Yep.
have a conversation here. I don't mind doing the water budget. I probably should do that as the chair.
I think for the rest of them, Dean, if you just want to, like, just go through the roll alphabetically, except for CFAL.
Kathy and Jill do that.
Yeah, but there's a couple I'd like to.
Go ahead.
As well. So I'd like to do the community housing appropriation for stepping stones, the home rule petition for year-round housing occupancy, and the lease to locals. Otherwise, I will take whatever comes my way.
So that's number 32 and
34 and 35.
34 and 35.
35.
Okay. We will have a consent calendar, I
Yes,
assume
the
that
moderator-
usual meeting with the
yes.
moderator, the town manager, the chair of the select board, and the finance committee chair on that.
Yes, we have our pre-meeting. Typically, the moderator looks for articles that have unanimous support by both the FinCom and the Select Board, or other regular reoccurring articles, but not necessarily anything with high funding amounts.
There are like 14 articles from the CPC. I would hope that some of those could go on a consent calendar.
I think some will be asked
Right.
for a vote, too.
Yeah. Any other comments on the order or who should be the speakers? Otherwise, we would just go alphabetically.
Give me whatever. I'm happy to
Okay,
tackle it, whatever.
all right.
Mr. Chair, so we typically go in order of chair, vice chair, clerk. Do you prefer to go alphabetically?
No, we'll do it
Okay.
that way. Okay,
And then if we need to, we can bring it back next week, but I think we're pretty good, so.
okay.
Okay,
we
thank you.
can. All right. We'll go on to the last item, which is a discussion of a potential academic research collaborative at Riders Cove, Woods Hole East. This is an agenda item requested by me. I'm happy to say it took me 10 months to put something on the agenda that I requested. And Jeff. So I want to just say a little background before I turn to staff on this. The idea is to invite, encourage an academic or a research institution to come into Chatham and open a small research facility. We think we're uniquely positioned geographically, environmentally, for something like that, and a lot of universities in this country and other institutions have been doing this. And the idea occurred to me in collaboration, in a conversation I had with a citizen, a resident of the town, named John Cullinane, who's a very prominent businessman. We were having a conversation over a cup of coffee some years ago, back in 2018, as a matter of fact, at Old Harbor Road. And we talked about possibly interesting the town in doing this. And we then invited Stephen Daniel into the conversation, and then I spoke with the town manager, and we had a small group of staff, and Shireen joined in that effort.
Yeah, I believe we had some conversations prior to the joining.
Yeah,
You and
that's
I
right.
did, yeah.
You and I had conversations. And we had formulated some ideas, and we actually had serious interest from one particular institution, and then COVID hit. And this has been sort of on the back burner since then. And Jeff had advanced the idea of something similar, calling it Woods Hole East. We're not talking about a huge institution, but it would bring some employment. And we have a building that is now being used for storage at Riders Cove, the old powerhouse. And so we wanted to bring this forward, and my thought is that we would formalize a process that would be open and public by designating a working group. I think the core group should be the same people. We may want to have an advisory group at some point, but those are my thoughts on it. And this could also lead to conferences in Chatham by institutions or organizations that have an interest in coastal resiliency or environmental protection or whatever. So that's the background. I'm going to ask Jeff if you want to say anything, and then we'll go to Katie Donovan.
May I also add after Jeff?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Yeah, this idea has been one its genesis was pre-COVID. It's one that excites me. I think it could lead to a greater, just a real neat approach to partnering with an academic institution, Bowdoin has done it, Northeastern has done it, a whole bunch of, and Chatham, in my thoughts, is the perfect petri dish for this type of approach, for study of coastal resilience, working with our Climate and Action Committee, Energy and Climate Action Committee, to work with our schools, to tie in with our schools. It could result in employment opportunities, and I think it would provide just a really neat, diverse addition to our town. Should tie in with Marconi as well. So I think there's a really neat way that a STEM approach could really impact the quality of life in the town. I think it's very exciting, to be honest with you. And I think we're the perfect place. Perfect place. Anyway.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Sharina. You were an integral part of the
Thank you, Dean, for
discussions there.
recognizing that. We did gather up some folks that came pre-COVID, and we had representations from the science community and the marine community who did some presentations to the people that we invited. We had a really robust sort of conversations, and in that, we were really optimistic that something would happen, but of course, as you had said, Dean, it was COVID that happened. But I think for Chatham, we're in really good position to be a regional hub for coastal marine science and research. And so I've always been a proponent of attracting an academic institute to come here. Some of the things that we have in assets, and probably, Greg, you're going to speak to this, and but we have the commercial fishing industry, we have existing collaborations already with NOAA, with National Marine Fishery Service, partnerships with fishermen and NGOs, and scientists are already existing here, as well as ongoing coastal resilience projects, marsh projects that are going on. And the Marconi itself, with the powerhouse, I think it would be a unique lab scenario for a satellite that could be either a hub for stationing or even just for research. But the other piece to that is the Marconi itself has data and technology, and it could be a great partnership for that organization. We're uniquely positioned because we have these assets, and we are basically, with the coastal dynamics, are, as Dr. Bob would say, we could be somebody's PhD if they came here and they studied. We've got a working waterfront, as I said, the existing partnerships. And I just wanted to say that I know that presently, in pooling some of who has been working here already in the town, we've seen Woods Hole Oceanographic, UMass Dartmouth SMAST, University of Massachusetts Amherst, BU, MIT Sea Grant, URI, University of New Hampshire, and University of Maine. And those are just the ones that I know that are working with some of the people that I know. Some of the funding opportunities that I see that could be instrumental on the federal level is, NOAA Sea Grant has a lot of money they offer money for research and development, as does foundational programs. The climate adaptation and resilient grants from NOAA are really EPA, coastal zone, the blue economy. All these are just out there. So one of the things that I see for us is this could be like it could be a real hallmark for the town. And I wouldn't, Woods Hole East is an idea. However, I think I think it's a realism. I really do. I think it's the infrastructure. We have the infrastructure. We already have the relationships. We have ongoing efforts by a committee that would get together and start to invite other universities here. This is all things that could be a real positive for the town of Chatham. And this would be one of the things that I think would be a shining moment for us. So I know I'm getting off the board, but I would be happily considered to stay on this working group if I was so asked. But I really feel that if we develop something like this, we'd be advancing coastal science, and we'd be in position of being a leader in some of the work that could be done around that.
Thank you, and I appreciate all that background, and I'm glad to hear you say you'd like to stay involved in this. I do want to mention, you mentioned Dr. Duncanson, because we did have some staff people in addition to the town manager. The lead.
Katie as well.
Lead was Katie Donovan and Dr. Duncanson, and I think that's everyone that, in the group. I don't know if I missed anybody, but
Oh, and I'm sorry, Dr. Selden, Florence Selden.
Lawrence Selden was involved, yes, yes. And then when Greg Berman was hired, we got to meet with him before he was actually started on the job, and I remember Greg, brought this up to Greg, and he is uniquely qualified, I think, to help in this project. So with that, I'm just going to ask Katie Donovan and Greg, I guess Katie will go first, and to talk a little bit about this, and then we can decide what we want to do.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, Katie Donovan. So staff at this point in time is, again, looking for direction. If there's a working group put together, certainly I believe that it'll be Greg and I, along with the town manager, that would be working with the group. Some of the questions that we had asked previously, I went back and looked at our 2019 presentation that we had done to the then Board of Selectmen. The questions that we had asked, which I think that we have answers to, but just to reconfirm is, the commitment level, what is the commitment level of the town toward developing such a relationship or relationships with academic organizations? What assets, including physical and or monetary, is the town willing to offer a potential partner, and to commit to creating a vision for the future here in the town? For physical needs, how long of a commitment is the town willing to consider? And would the board be willing, and if yes, to what extent, to enter a public-private partnership to host a regular symposium or conference? And I think that we had talked about that briefly as something that could potentially happen in the future, depending on who the partners may be. So I think Greg had worked on a staff report talking specifically about, more about the powerhouse. But I also wanted to mention that one of the other assets that we find over at the MCI property.
Katie?
Just 1 second. We're not sure we're still broadcasting.
Oh, okay.
Don't waste all that.
All right,
Okay.
we'll suspend for a moment.
Okay. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should know the time. It's just a wait.
Did we pay our license fees?
Can you take a break, because we can't stop it now. We have to let it cycle through its process.
Okay. We'll go into recess until this is resolved. Thank you. We're in recess. It's 7:09, 7:09,
Yeah, maybe
7:08. Now it's 7:09.
Kathy has it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think before we were interrupted, I think I was discussing questions that we had posed to the board back in 2019. I think I had gotten through 2 of them, but I think, so just to round it out, talking about physical assets and how long of a commitment the town's willing to consider. And also, if the board is willing and to what extent to enter into a public-private partnership to host a regular symposium or conference. And that, I think, is something that we had talked about potentially doing, but further down the road. Greg had noted in the staff report about the powerhouse, but I also wanted to mention one of the other assets that we had looked at was the second floor of the Marconi property, the old hotel, and there's some unused space up there that we could potentially be looking at as well. So I don't want to lose sight of that. So as I mentioned when I first started, I think that staff, and I'd like to let Greg speak as well, but I'd like to, I think from a staff perspective, we're just looking for some direction. I think that, you know, once the group is formalized and working back together, I think that we can reach out to some of the institutions that we had been speaking to previously, and then perhaps include others as well. So if you don't mind, if I could.
Yeah, I just want to say, the questions you ask, I think those are questions that the working group could tackle early on, and I don't know that we are in a position to answer those questions tonight, but anyway, Greg.
Great.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Dean. And I do remember that conversation that we had back when I was wondering if I was going to be objected to as your new Director of Natural Resources. And I have kept track of that goal of the Select Board as it's, you know, been passed down. I'm relatively new to the game, but, you know, like you said, Chatham is a jewel. It's unique. It's fascinating. You know, this is one of the things that attracted me to Chatham. Just the amazing opportunities to learn and work with coastal resilience, with fisheries. There's not many fish beers around. Since I've been here, you know, I've reached back out to some former colleagues. Right now, Woods Oceanographic Institution has some test tide gauges that they've put out, monitoring next to some of the NOAA stations. Working with the Harbor Master crew, we now have a wave buoy that just got in this week. That'll look forward to that in the monthly report, but that's some amazing data coming in. Working with some of the coastal resilience people over at Hui and with the county. Hopefully this will be a network of instruments. So whether it's a test bed for instruments or more of a, ivory tower look at how we work with the social science, dealing with people in coastal resilience, whether it's a look at interacting with fisheries. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in this, fairly unique and desirable location.
Thank you. And I would just add that some of these universities, despite the federal cutbacks in research, are fairly aggressive and well-positioned to move in this direction. I'm going to just bring it back to the board. My hope is that we can, as a board, formalize the creation of a working group, which I would submit should be the same people that were on before. We had a recent meeting at staff level when we talked about the possibility of adding on an advisory group, and there might be other people in town who might want to assist in this whole process. But anyway, Stuart.
Who was on that group?
It was, in addition to myself, it was Shireen, Stephen Daniel, Jill, John Cullinane, and it was Bob Duncanson, so I would expect Greg and Katie Donovan, and Florence, of course, is no longer with us.
Yes, and so Florence was representing, I believe, FinCom at the time. We had 2 members from FinCom.
That's right. We had 2 members of the FinCom. But anyway, that's who was.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of members from, I think we had probably 4 on the CFL group, I think were helpful above and beyond the town staff. I think there was a lot of good input. So anyway, reaching out into the community, there's a lot of talent here as we're interviewing for committee people. I think there's people that could serve on that working group that would add to it.
Did you want to suggest a name from the working group?
Well, they'll send me hate mail if I mention their name, but no, let me, I can get back to you on that. But,
Okay.
there's, if it's going to involve, renovating buildings and things like, or adding buildings,
I know what you mean.
well, there's certainly contractors and builders out there that could help with that sort of land use people, maybe some of our surveyors, things like that. This discussion, this goes back decades. This goes back when we were deciding. Yeah, and during the dredging meetings, that goes really far back. And then when we were talking about making the brick houses homes for folks, it goes back to that. And it was always a university type. I think it's really exciting. I think that there are challenges that are going to come up and that relate to infrastructure. Our waterside facilities are very limited, so that you would, that our harbor is difficult to get in and out of and navigate. So all of which can be addressed, but they're going to need to be dealt with in some way. But no, I think it's if we could attract a university or some scientific coastal. What's the group up in Provincetown? Coastal Studies. Those.
Yeah,
those
there's
are
no reason that we should be out.
Yeah, but I mean on a broader sense than what we have now. I think would be very exciting.
So I think there's two tracks here. Obviously, there's the concept piece, and then as Stuart said, the infrastructure piece. So which would all result in like what I would hope we would look at what would benefit the town.
Yeah.
As far as who would come here and what that benefit would be, especially when it comes to some of the marsh restoration and also the coastal resiliency issues. Those would be I think maybe the working group would want to do a top priority list, and then that would attract, not just have somebody come. I mean, we've had people that came last time and they were like, we want to work on robotics. And that was really cool, an idea.
Yeah.
There is some robotics work going on in town presently with, I'll come to me soon,
There
but.
may be some federal funding for that, too.
Well, there's always going to be some sort of funding that's going to happen, but there's a lot of different things. It's just, I think what we have to look at is infrastructure, defining it, figuring out, is it housing, is it just a lab, is what would be needed, and also that space issue around moorings and all that. But also, if it's a marine science-based thing, but also, what would be really good for the town, as far as what would we want to see ultimately.
And we're not looking for any money tonight. The idea would be that this group eventually would come up with a proposal.
Exactly, an RFP.
Bring it back to the board.
Yeah.
We'd have to go to town meeting if we need some funds.
Yeah.
Corey?
There's a couple of things, I've been aware of these conversations, way back when, and they were starting to get a little bit of traction, then COVID hit, and unfortunately, it's been quite a few years that, since then. Chatham is the ideal situation for this. We should absolutely start pursuing this, not pursue it, we should secure it. Getting the working group together, moving this forward. We have a couple identified options, whether it be the powerhouse or another part of the Marconi complex, I think have a lot of validity. If we do get to that point, there are some site elements I would like to discuss when the appropriate time comes that tie into other projects that have been in that area, so I won't get too ahead of myself. But I do think this has a lot of strong potential, and I don't think we should waste any time, and really, we should kind of get on this because it makes a lot of sense to pursue this.
Jeff?
So what do you want tonight there, Mr.
Well,
Chairman?
may I
really
suggest
think
some-
The working group's a great idea, and rekindle the prior working group's a great idea. I think you've already generated a lot of excitement right here tonight, so, I think that's the next step.
May I suggest that there be a motion to formalize the creation as a working group of the board, the individuals who were involved previously, with the understanding that if additional names are proposed, we can consider adding them afterward. So I'll put that forward as a motion.
No, second.
Okay. Is that okay, Jill? We can have a working group of the board.
Sure.
And it would be subject to the open meeting law, the usual.
Yes.
that stuff. And there may be times when we have to go into executive session because some of these prospective applicants, may not want their identity disclosed. But we have to make sure we qualify under provisions of the open meeting law for that. So with that, unless there's any discussion, Katie?
Mr. Chairman, just thinking from a name perspective, the name that had been previously used was the Chatham Academic Collaboration Initiative. I'm not sure if that's something that you'd like to continue. We've also referred to it as the potential, Chatham Potential Academic Research.
The ARC, the Academic Research Collaborative, that's the, Stephen, I think, gave it.
Yeah, so.
I'm inclined to keep that name. Academic Research Collaborative, folks okay with that? Okay, it'll be the, it'll be the,
Fancy.
it'll be the Academic Research Collaborative Working Group. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Matters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Jeff, Greg, before you go, what's the status of the boathouse? Where is that? They discussed this morning at the Historical Commission, so.
So weather has pushed us back a week. It wasn't safe to lift it in New Bedford on Monday, and between that and the weather window, it's just been pushed off an entire week. Hopefully, we'll get better and more news on Sunday, and potentially, hopefully, just 1 week delay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right.
We would like to see, water spraying out, somebody escorting the people in. I'll talk to
Big
Jason
American
about that.
flag.
Big American flag.
Let's go.
Look forward to it.
Okay.
Keep us in the loop.
Final motion of the night.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Matters.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned at 7:27 PM. Good night, Chatham.